Sure, we all hear that every family has its problems and it's normal that they love you, they care for you. Forget about it. They didn't mean it that way. Don't be too sensitive. You are just making it more than it is. It's fine. It's your family after all. Just be more forgiving. You should be the bigger person. Have you heard this? Because this is the norm in a toxic family environment. Conditional love starts from the home you were born into. The unspoken contract that you're born into, which comes with expectations and obligations, and is almost always non negotiable because toxic family members aren't interested in your well being or have your best interest at heart. The idea they know what to do, how to do it, and why you need to do it, all in exchange for what would be love and acceptance that is very much conditional. Mutuality is non existent in such family dynamics. You are born into the family to eventually grow up, continue their lineage, and provide in the ways they would expect. And for most lower or middle income families, children are often treated like retirement plans. Well, I agree that every family has human problems. I mean, humans are problematic anyway. However, in a toxic family dynamic, they take it up a notch. And if you are watching this video, you know what I'm talking about and you are here for a reason. Most likely you were born into one, or you are married into a toxic family, or you are just simply part of a very toxic family dynamic. And let's look at the anatomy of a dysfunctional family dynamic and just how toxic they can be for your emotional and mental well-being. And as we speak of dealing with toxic family member, let's be mindful, we are not here talking about the regular disagreements that happens in every family. We are here talking about the constant disrespect, the constant humiliation, the invalidation, the criticizing, the unappreciation that you would never get no matter how much you give, the lack of empathy, no matter what you do, it's never good enough. And you are called rebellious when you try to express your needs or you have an opinion. They call you crazy just because you try to get to the truth. And they simply go on and on and on, gaslighting and saying everything that is not right about you. No matter what you do, it's never good enough. You are the black sheep of the family just because you are different and you're trying to break out from the mold of tradition that they had built. And for that reason, you will always be seen as the villain in that family. Now, which part of any of this sounds remotely healthy to you? Because it simply isn't. People don't understand what it is like to grow up in a toxic family environment, in a place where you are never going to get to understand your own value, to accept you for who you are, and you will never get the love and care and support that every human being deserves. And that is not your fault. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Veena Raji, and this channel is dedicated to talking about healing from childhood trauma, narcissistic abuse, and attachment styles, which I have done on myself over the last few years without any professional help. And I have dedicated this channel to sharing about my own personal journey and everything that I did to help me through my healing, hoping that this information will help the rest of you as much as it did help me. And in today's video, we are going to talk about one of the most important topics, 5 signs of toxic relationships with family and how to manage it. The first sign of a toxic family member is the gaslighter. If you have that one family member that would always twist everything that you say, they never meant it like that, or they were saying something else, you misunderstood, you misheard them, you are crazy because you are assuming something that never happened. And even if you do have receipts of the event that did happen to prove it to them, they would deflect, they would blame, they would refuse accountability, they would never apologize because it's never their fault. You are being too sensitive, you're being too calculative, you are just picking on them, you are weird, you are different, you name it. It just goes on. And even when you do have proof of everything that happens, they would deflect outright on your face and say that you are crazy for making things up. Now imagine growing up in an environment like that. It is crazy making, and no one can keep their balance because your perception of reality is constantly being denied and distorted. And how do you expect to get across anything at all with someone like that? How do you even deal with a person that just refuses any kind of accountability and would just never see their fault in it? It's simply not possible. No matter how much you try to reason with them to try to put a rest to that issue that has been plaguing you, you will never reach a point of solution. There is simply no winning with a gaslighter, and this can be extremely damaging to your confidence and to your self-esteem because you are just stuck in your head for never being able to justify those actions. It's exhausting, it's tiring, it can cause discord among other family members. And because remember, a gaslighter isn't just going to stop at you. They will continue to gaslight other family members into believing you were the problem all along. And trust me, someone who has that much of mental energy to play a game will exhaust everyone around them. You best believe this very same person will use every family member and turn them against you if you will ever come close to the truth. You simply cannot have a healthy relationship with other family members when you have one person in the family that is always going to try to turn others against you. It would not be possible to form a healthy connection in a family environment, especially. So what can you do? How can you deal with a toxic family member who is a gaslighter? While of course going no contact or moving out from the house would be an amazing option, unfortunately this is not really feasible for a lot of people, especially if you are still studying, if you're still a student, or perhaps you're still a very young adult, you're just only starting your first job. Or there could also be cultural aspects to it. So there are in certain cultures where adults would continue to live with their parents under the same roof until they get married, and this is very common in a lot of Asian culture. I'm not going to get into details because I do come from a similar background as well. So what you can possibly do is you need to start exploring other arrangements. Now, one of the things that you can actually do is to start going into self-preservation mode. Now, how do you self-preserve when you are not able to whole healthy conversation? You simply know that you are never going to get your way around this person. They are going to use everything that you say against you, or they're going to turn other family members against you. So here's what you can do for the sake of your own sanity and emotional well-being. I would suggest that you find a healthy outlet to express yourself. Now, one of the best way and the safest way to do this is to keep a journal where you can record everything that you experience, everything that you go through. It's also a healthy outlet for you to vent out your frustrations, your anger, whatever it is. You can pour your hearts out into the book and just write down unfiltered, just let it all out. And of course, you can also rely on someone who is not part of the family. Like, if you do have a partner, you can try to seek support. You can speak to a partner about it, or maybe you can confide in a friend or perhaps a relative that you trust. So find a healthier outlet to express, because it's really not healthy for you to take in all these emotions and suppress them. It does become toxic for you. I mean, this is how trauma gets stored in the body. We've been talking a lot about how trauma is formed. So it's really important that, you exercise self-preservation, find healthier outlets to deal with it, because you know for a fact that you cannot go to this person. This particular adult doesn't seem to have the maturity and the skills to handle conflicts or navigate around relationship. And there is simply no way around building a healthy connection with someone who refuses accountability and would constantly deflect. You cannot do anything about it. Now, when you cannot change someone's actions, you can actually change the way you respond to it. And another thing that you can also do is to start setting healthy boundaries where you engage much lesser in conversations with them, because the only way they can start gaslighting you is when you allow space for communication to take place. Now, that being said, I am not telling you to completely cut off communication. That is really challenging for a lot of people. You still need to have some kind of communication or contact, especially if you are living under the same roof. However, what you can do is that you can reduce the amount of communication that takes place on a daily basis, so you don't engage in a conversation unless it's absolutely necessary. And When you do that, you are not giving them the chance to get back at you, because a gaslighter is always going to find a way to get back at you by provoking you. They're going to twist your words, they're going to say things that happen, they're going to deny reality, and this actually is done in an attempt to cause confusion, to sort of keep you under control, because it really is mentally and emotionally exhausting and draining when someone is twisting their words and playing these mind games. For someone who is remotely healthy, this kind of behavior is crazy making. You don't want to allow that. So what you can do is set healthy boundaries, minimize conversations with them, cut down communication as much as you can, and only engage as and when necessary. And whenever you sense that they are trying to gaslight you, they are getting back into that, because they are not going to change overnight. So they are going to try and use your words against you. They're going to try and deny something that you said or did. Whenever you get into that situation again, just make a mental note. Okay, you know what, this is going to repeat again. You know how this is going to end. You are going to reach a dead end. It's not going to give you anything but stress you. So what you can do is choose to disengage. If they're going to get into it, disengage, move on, distract yourself, do other stuff, and just keep it at a bare minimum communication. Sign number 2, the constant criticizing, humiliation, and invalidation. If you grew up constantly being humiliated, criticized, judged, invalidated, you can end up building a lot of resentment towards them, and this can severely damage your self-worth and your ability to thrive in the world as you grow into your adult self. And in a toxic family dynamic, these patterns are almost inevitable, because you are most definitely dealing with an unhappy, insecure adult that can only feel better about themselves by constantly projecting and putting you down, because that's what makes them feel in control. Putting you down allows them to feel superior and better about themselves. A normal, healthy, supportive human being would not do that, especially towards their own family that they are supposed to love. And if someone is constantly doing that to you, then you have every reason to have resentments towards them. But let's talk about why would they do this. It is so easy to ask their supporters to tell you that, oh, they didn't mean it like that, or they're just looking out for you, or they mean well, but they just don't know how to express themselves. This whole idea of tough love, which is so dominant in the Asian culture, especially in the South Asian household, they think that tough love is an act of love. Their idea of a tough love is an outright emotional abuse that is just so damaging towards the children, and they would never be able to see their part in it, because that's what they had learned from their parents. So now they are passing it on to you, because that is their idea of what parenting is all about. And if they do not enforce tough love, then you may stray away and you might just end up becoming an irresponsible or incapable adult. And unfortunately, what they are actually doing is they are just causing more damage towards the child. What really pisses me off is the fact that the amount of people, especially other family members or relatives, that would stand by the side and actually witness what is happening, and they would never utter a word of support or speak anything in your defense, because saying so would probably damage their relationship with the supposed toxic family member. So what they do, they further enable that person, and you are here being coddled into accepting, to tolerating, to just accepting that bad behavior. You are being programmed or conditioned to let it slide. And if you do that, if you listen, if you accept, if you let it slide, then what you get in return? You get acceptance, you get love from them. So you feel that you belong. Now, if you go against that, then you are termed as the black sheep. You are not an obedient child. This is so toxic. What can be worse than dealing with an abusive, toxic family member is to actually watch people standing by the side and enabling them to further continue the abuse, and there is absolutely no regards to how that would make you feel. There's no consideration to how emotionally damaging it is on you, because all they can see is this person is supposedly your caregiver, your parents, and they're just saying that because they mean well for you. But what they don't seem to acknowledge is the fact that what they are doing is extremely hurtful. They would never want to say that. You are constantly being asked to let it slide, just accept it, be forgiving. You have to be the bigger person. So this is why people who grow up in a toxic household would actually go out and end up being in a toxic relationship, because they have been enabled and programmed to tolerating bad behavior since they were young. And when you don't find that safety in your home with the people that is supposed to care and love you, how do you expect to find that safety outside with someone that you barely know? We don't talk about it enough, but there is a reason why people get into unhealthy relationship, and it's never that person's fault. I mean, if you have experienced emotional abuse from the very people that is supposed to protect you, how are you supposed to discern what a healthy relationship or healthy love would look like? So let's talk about how this can further destroy our idea and perception of a healthy love. So how do you deal with someone like this? What can you do? Once again, less is more. I would say that, engage lesser. Don't share much about what you do in your work or in your personal life, anything that is significant to you. And as much as it pains me to say this, sometimes it's just so much easier not to share about your troubles, your challenges, or your current life stresses, because they simply won't make it better. If anything, they would actually use that to further hurt you and put you down. Imagine someone that will not spare from saying something to put you down each time you had done something noteworthy, each time you had done something that made them feel proud, when you had accomplished something. They are going to use every chance they get further to insult you, humiliate you, and put you down when you are at your lowest. This isn't a healthy family that we are talking about. We are talking about a toxic family member that is constantly there to invalidate, to judge everything that you do. Someone who will not make you feel good on your best days is most definitely not going to do any better to make you feel better on your lowest days. So you best believe you are better off not sharing your challenges, your problems with them, because it's so much easier to deal with it on your own. Or perhaps you can, share it with someone you are more comfortable with, someone that you know would be more receptive and supportive of you. The third sign is pitting against your siblings. I have heard this time and again, how parents treat their siblings or favor that one sibling over the other. And I don't want to make this cultural, because, this actually does happen a lot in certain Asian culture. However, with my background and the culture that I come from, this is often a very common dynamic in every single household. And I have literally witnessed this growing up. It is just part of the mentality within the South Asian community to wanting to prioritize one child over the other, with the idea that one child, or we call it the golden child, will make them look good or be the one to provide and take care of the rest of the family and be the responsible one. And it's often an unspoken rule, unfortunately, and as a result they would prioritize the needs of the golden child, and they tend to neglect the other siblings, making them feel abandoned, neglected, and just less important, as if the other kids don't really matter to them as much. And what happens in this dynamics is that sometimes it is not so transparent, but the neglected sibling will begin to harbor resentment towards the parents, or even the sibling as they grow up. And sometimes this sibling can seem to have a relatively healthy bond with their other siblings. However, as they age, now this is what happened. As they age, the way the parent treat the other siblings will further intensify the feelings of resentment, because this sibling will grow up feeling that, parents never care about me. They're always about this one sibling. It's always about what he or she wants, and everything. The entire focus is centered around that one sibling, and the other sibling just grow up always feeling less important and just always neglected. Now, what happens is this often creates a very complex and messy dynamic when one of them choose to get married, or eventually when all the siblings just move on to getting married and they have a spouse that now enters into that family equation, where they would start noticing the different treatment given to you and to the other sibling, and this would inevitably make them question why you are being treated differently as compared to your other sibling. Like, they would be able to notice how the parents treat the siblings. Like, one sibling gets away with so many things and the other siblings gets very little, or generally they are just treated very differently as compared to the other sibling. Now, here's the most fascinating part of this dysfunctional dynamic, is that the child that was often neglected and made to feel less important will actually try to prove their worth in some way or form, in order to try and win over their parents' approval or love by overperforming, be it in their career or academically, or just overgiving in an attempt to feel worthy and earn their parents' love and affection. And this is also how they come to develop this people-pleasing, overgiving tendency. It's basically just an attempt to win over the parents' affection and approval. Whereas On the other hand, now this golden child, the other sibling who had always been receiving more from the parent, will do the exact opposite. They would probably have some strong boundaries in place. They would not be such a big giver, because as much as this sibling has learned to receive from their parents when they were much younger, they also know that how the parents really are. And because the child that has always been on the receiving end has an unspoken pressure on them to actually written that in some way or form, there is always some hidden expectations. It's basically an unspoken contract, and the terms are often non-negotiable. So a parent that is constantly giving most certainly does have an expectation, and this sibling will actually learn that from a very young age, and they will learn how to draw boundaries and not overgive. And this is unfortunate. However, what will happen is the adult sibling now would see that no matter what they do, they would never be able to win that approval and affection that they so desire and deserve and want from their parents. And this will eventually set a lot of resentment towards the sibling. Now, there's really nothing much you can do. The only thing you can do in this dynamic is really to have a mindset shift, try to expand your worldview, look at the situation, and view your parents or caregivers and your family members as an individual, and know that it's never really your sibling's fault if your parents had chose to favor that one sibling over you and they choose to neglect you. You never deserved it in the first place. But you really need to start accepting that, you know, what your parent has been practicing is unhealthy, is toxic, it's just not normal for a parent to do that. These are basically unhealthy, immoral behaviors. No parent should treat their children that way. So what you can do is start to detach your perception of how you would expect them to treat you, and just start seeing things for what it is. Come to acceptance, and just accept that it was never your sibling's fault, it was never your fault. It's just what your parents choose to give as an adult, and that's just what they choose to do and treat their children. You don't want to be that kind of parent, so you want to make a mental note that you want to make a shift and you don't want to become that person, and gradually learn to just let go of the resentment towards the other sibling, because this is a fact that we cannot deny. When you have always felt like the other sibling has always gotten more than you, it is very, very normal to have resentment towards the other sibling, and you don't have to reason that with anyone. Don't let anyone talk you out of it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Your emotions and your feelings are valid. You have a very good reason for feeling the way you do. So just accept it. Know that it's never your fault to begin with, and learn to just let it go and not have any resentment towards anyone, and just start looking out for yourself. And you know, if you have desire to build your own family, then you might want to shift your focus onto that, on what you can do for your family, so you can build that healthy, loving family that you never had for yourself. Next we have is setting boundaries between parents and spouse. And I will not say this lightly. However, as an adult, you have to have strong boundaries in place when it comes to allowing your parents into your personal life, and especially so when you are married. Because some parents, especially in South Asian households, parents can be so meddlesome, and they really are one of the reasons for causing a lot of conflict and problems in the marriage. They tend to have this mindset that they know what is best for you. And mind you, if you are married to an Indian family or an Indian household, the mother-in-law would often view their daughter-in-law as a mortal enemy who has come to snatch their innocent son from their arms. And they get really spiteful when the son finally chooses his wife and sets some strong boundaries. And in such cases, they actually grow really resentful towards the spouse, towards the wife in this case. And they would play the victim card, treating that the adult children's decision as a rejection, instead of accepting that their children now has their own life. And while I am not married, so some may question my credibility for giving such advice, and trust me when I say I have seen enough to know what I'm talking about. I come from a huge family. Both my maternal paternal family is massive. I have over 80 cousins, 80. So you get the gist that I have seen enough. And in fact, I am one of the youngest cousins who is still not married, and I have a very good reason for that. So you best believe when I say that when you are married, when you are in a relationship, you must expect to set some really strong boundaries in place to make sure that you don't allow your toxic family member, especially if you have a toxic parent, you do not want to allow them to meddle into your married life. And the number of marriages that falls apart and causes discord within the relationship that is caused by parents is staggeringly high. Once again, I don't want to make this cultural, but this is inevitable in South Asian households. I know so many people, I do have a lot of friends who have gone through this, which has actually ended in divorce. So I want to say that if your parent is going to constantly insert an opinion and wants you to do things a certain way because that's what they think is right for you, it is going to annoy your spouse. It's going to be really, really annoying for anyone. Like, you don't want your parent to question your decision as an adult. So people who choose to be married have to actively choose their future family as compared to the family that they were born into. And I'm not here to say that you should abandon your family, your old parents, or neglect them. No, what I'm trying to say is that to draw the line, set healthy boundaries, do what you want to, and provide for your old parents in the way you deem appropriate, and at the same time don't allow them to meddle into your personal affairs like your finances, your property, your household issues. Keep them private. Do not let them to have an opinion, or don't share too much about what happens within your marriage with them, because the lesser they know, the better it is. You don't want someone else interfering in your personal affairs that could upset your spouse. Last one, which is likely the most important one. Now, if you grew up in a toxic family dynamic, it is essential that you keep your life private as you grow up and you start working and building your career, because in a healthy family environment, any problems or challenges you face in life will be closely guarded, talked, and dealt with within the family. And usually the parents would be more protective of their children's personal life, and they would avoid sharing too much information with others, including relatives, because they understand experiencing obstacles and overcoming them is very much part of a human experience, and this can be financial or otherwise, and they would seek to support you in the best way they can, emotionally or otherwise. However, that simply isn't the case in a toxic family environment. Remember, you are not dealing with a healthy, mature adult that wants what is best for you. Instead, you are dealing with someone who simply thinks that they know what is best for you and would be against your entire life decision, no matter how capable or how accomplished you are, or you may seem, because it isn't about what you want to do for yourself. It's really all about what they approve of you. And as a result, you will be constantly met with invalidation, criticism, belittling, and they will never really acknowledge anything you do sincerely, because they are never truly happy for you, unfortunately. And to make matters worse, they will do everything to air out your dirty laundry to people closest to them. And in some cases, they would put you down in front of those who are close to you as well, because it's the only way they can feel good about themselves. And sometimes they don't actually realize they would outrightly put you down and belittle you for, probably going through a job loss or going through some significant life challenges by just telling someone like, look at her so and so, I told her not to do that, or I told him not to do that, he just never listened. If only he would have listened to me, he would probably be in a better place. I did say don't do this, do this instead, never took my advice and wanted to leave on their own terms, and look at where they are right now. Now, God forbid you do something well, which brings them a good name, something that they can be proud of. Now they would use that to go and talk about your accomplishment and brag about it to people that's close to them, because now that makes them feel good. And that also paints this image that what a capable, wonderful parent that they are, to have actually brought up such a well accomplished children. Now, it's not the case, unfortunately. When you meet with a pitfall, when you're going through some challenging times in your life, they really are the last people who would offer you the kind of support that you actually need. You would never truly receive the support. However, they can paint a picture as if that they are being there supporting you and maybe providing for you and taking care of you, while that might not even be true. So what you want to do here is, while this can be extremely challenging for a lot of adults, we all go through challenges. It's part of human experience. Life is all about duality. There is no such thing as life without any challenges. But if you have toxic family, unfortunately, you have to learn to accept the fact that you are never going to be supported in whatever it is that you do, no matter good or bad. You would never be received and loved in the way that you deserve. And instead of beating yourself up for the same thing that you have experienced over and over again over the years, it's best that you seek support from someone that genuinely, truly understands, sees you, and loves you, and who might be able to comfort you in the ways that they can. That's the best you can do for yourself. So if you have a toxic family environment, if you grow up in a toxic family, all I want to say is that you should really have a lot of compassion for yourself. Whatever it is that you've done for yourself, know that you are a very capable individual. You have made the best decisions to choose and do what is best for you instead of allowing someone to tell you what you should be doing, because we all deserve to do what makes us feel alive. And don't let anyone else to put you down and take you down. It's a long way to go for you to actually heal and move on and to be able to build a healthier environment for yourself. So for those of you who are still stuck in a toxic family environment, if you're still living under the same roof, do know that this is not forever. You can work your way up and find your own life soon. So I really do hope that some of the information that I shared here would bring you some hope and give you that support that you most likely have not received externally, and know that you are not alone in your struggle. There really are thousands of people out there who come from a toxic family dynamic and they've gone through a lot of challenges that most people would probably not even talk about. But remember that you're not alone. Things can get better. Keep going. I'm here rooting for you, and build yourself a life that you truly deserve, because you have one life to live and you deserve to live the best life. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and if you have not subscribed, please do hit like and subscribe to help me grow my channel, and I would see you again in my next video.